Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new film Wicked for Good. This is the second part of the Wicked story that's being adapted into a film. Previously in 2024, we had the first Wicked film just entitled Wicked, or if you're watching the film, it'll say Wicked Part 1 at the opening credits of the film. So this is the second half of the overall Broadway show. It is adapted into a film. And this time around, we find Glinda and Elphaba basically right where the events of the last film left off, where we find basically Glinda the Good basically leading all the Oz people and the Munchkins of Munchkin Land into kind of a better direction for Oz, while Elphaba's kind of being accused of something that she didn't do. And so she's basically now the Wicked Witch of the West, and people want her gone. They want her dead, and they're hunting for her. They have reasons to go after her. And over the course of the story, we also find out exactly, what was going on before Dorothy landed there in the Wizard of Oz story. How did the Tin Man become to be? How did the Cowardly Lion become to be? Where exactly did the Scarecrow come from? Why was he there? What were some of kind of his motivations in Oz before he was found by Dorothy and the others before, that story took place? And we also kind of get final resolutions of what exactly happened to Elphaba, what was Glinda doing over the course of the Wizard of Oz story while all this stuff was going on. And so all this happens over the course of Wicked for Good. But overall, guys, I really enjoyed this film. I will say right off the bat, I didn't enjoy this film as much as the first Wicked film, but this is still a very enjoyable experience. I think if you like Wicked, if you liked that first film, I think you'll have a lot of fun with this movie. It's not perfect. It certainly has its flaws, but there's certainly all that stuff you love from the first movie being continued here. Great musical numbers, great production design, great performances from Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo and everybody else involved. So I'm going to go over some positives and negatives as to why I like the film overall, but there's also some negatives along the way that are going to prevent this film from being that classic film that I would say the first Wicked film has since become over the course of 2024 up to today. So for my positives of Wicked for Good, I think the production design, first and foremost, is absolutely fantastic in this film. They use practical sets just like in the first movie. The production itself just looks great. The environments seem interactive and huge and immersive. And just the way that the story is told, I really feel like I was spending, two and a half hours in Oz. I really felt like all the stuff going on in the real world before I entered the theater. I basically got to leave at the door while the story was taking place. I just felt very immersed in this experience, and I feel the production design is definitely a key factor as to why I felt that way. I also like how the story goes in a darker direction this time around. We find Elphaba in a darker place. We find Glinda in a darker place. There's some things going on with Glinda's boyfriend from the first film that is going on that we're going to find, details out about over the course of this film. Definitely a darker story. Definitely one of those stories where you find out a little bit of some stuff that was going on before Dorothy landed there in the first Wizard of Oz movie. And overall, it's just an overall darker experience. So for those who were hoping for that, for the overall Wicked story, you definitely get that in this second Wicked film. I also like how we get more details about the overall Wizard of Oz story. There's just more things that come to light as to what exactly was going on with Glinda, was going on with Elphaba, what was going on with, like the Scarecrow and the Tin Man and all this other stuff before, Dorothy landed there. And so it's always great to see further details about that overall Wizard of Oz story, so we get a better understanding as to what exactly was going on, before, during, and after that classic Wizard of Oz story. There's also some pretty strong musical numbers here, so if you like the way the musical numbers were handled in that first Wicked film, I think you're definitely going to get more of that this time around. So definitely some strong musical numbers that I thought they continued in a very strong fashion this time around. Also, the overall chemistry between Glinda and Elphaba was very strong here. I thought that was very well handled. Great screen chemistry between Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. Definitely a lot of strong moments between the two of those characters. So I thought there was a lot of opportunities within the screenplay for those two characters to really stand out in front of everybody else in the story. I also like how the film overall does connect the overall Wizard of Oz story with the overall story of Wicked. We also kind of get some clearer details as to what was going on in some of those earlier scenes in that first Wicked film, how it's connecting overall to the overall universe. The overall stuff with, Glinda being asked if her and Elphaba were ever friends at this big Munchkin celebration, and kind of the things that happened both before, during, and after all that took place. So I just like how it overall connects everything. It really does have closure. So even if they decide to make a third Wicked film, I felt like these two stories in particular really kind of closed off that Broadway show in a good way. So I thought all that was well handled over the course of Wicked for Good. But for my negatives of the film, unfortunately this time around the pacing is a little off this time. You can definitely tell they filmed some scenes where it was going to have a regular pace and an extended pace. And what I mean by that is there's scenes where characters clearly go about what the scene was originally going to be about, but there's clearly some opportunities within the screenplay where Elphaba gets asked to kind of elaborate more on her monologue, or Glinda basically dances around more, or there's more times that the characters reflect on certain things. And so there's just a lot of times within the screenplay where it almost feels like there's an idea written down, but the actors and actresses involved are asked to kind of stretch that material as far as they possibly can without it feeling overwhelmed. So for me personally, I've just felt like the pacing was a little bit off, and I really feel like this film probably could have been a little bit shorter if they found the right pacing for it. But for the way that it stands, the way it was released, it does feel like an extended version of a film that I would have enjoyed better with some better editing involved. There's also just some overall weird character decision choices throughout the movie. Some of that I think is just things that were about the Wicked show on Broadway that I think some people, even to this day, are kind of iffy about. And I have been told through people that have seen the Wicked Broadway show that the first half is better than the second half. So I feel like that kind of translates to the film a little bit as well. But there is some weird character decisions here. They, without going into spoilers, obviously, there's a very significant Wizard of Oz character that's featured in the film, and we never get to see this character's face. It's always on the back side of this character or on the overhead view, but never the face. If they have any lines, it's just basically like, oh, hey, why are you doing that? And all that other stuff. And then with another significant Wizard of Oz character, we find out kind of a backstory about him as to some things between this character and the Wicked Witch and how they connect. And some of it is just very bizarre creative choices, from my opinion. And yeah, there's just a lot of that over the course of this film. It's like, really, that's how that character got there, and that's what this character was just trying to do the whole time in the Wizard of Oz story. And you're not going to feature this really significant character that was significant in Wizard of Oz. And there's just a lot of times throughout the screenplay where some better choices, I think, could have been presented better for some of these characters. And overall, too, I felt like some of the characters this time around were really just kind of unlikable throughout the whole runtime. Glinda, in particular, to me, really didn't feel likable this time around. It felt like there was almost kind of nothing for her character to discover, nothing for her character to grow upon. It was just kind of a lot of chances in the screenplay for her to feel sorry for the characters that are going through a rougher time than she is. There's a character that is basically the character that holds the ruby slippers for, I think it's the Wicked Witch of the East or something. And she's kind of unlikable throughout the first half of the movie too. And it's just one of those movies where I felt like all the stuff that we accomplished in that first Wicked film, with likable characters, seeing them where they were at their university, seeing the journey they were going on, some of the conflicts that they faced by making the choices that they did. It just felt like there was a journey and there was a character arc for each and every one of these individual characters in that first Wicked film. And unfortunately, this time around, I feel like that aspect of the story doesn't completely deliver the way that it did in that first Wicked movie. And overall, too, I'm just going to overall say it just doesn't feel as magical as the first film. It just doesn't feel as... Because in that first Wicked film, you were truly in a different time, a different place. You were truly on those sets with those characters. And yes, they did it practically this time again. And yes, it is the same characters. And yes, they're connecting to the Wizard of Oz more. But it just doesn't quite feel as magical as that first film did. It just doesn't quite like the talking animals this time. They just don't feel as immersive and great as that first film did. And there's just something about this film that just doesn't quite feel as magical overall as that first film did. But overall, I'm going to give Wicked for Good an 8.5 out of 10. There's certainly a lot of great things to like about it. There's certainly some great things that I can say about it complimentary wise. But there is a lot of negatives here. Like I said, the pacing truly is pretty off here. There's some weird character design decision choices within the script. Just a lot of unlikable characters too throughout the runtime. And overall, that overall magical feeling we've experienced in the first Wicked film isn't quite as present this time around. So I recommend that you see it. If you like the first Wicked film, absolutely see it because it's a great continuation of that story. It's just a great continuation that happens to be not as good as that first film, but it is an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I recommend seeing Wicked for Good. So if you like Wicked, if you like the Broadway show, if you like that first movie, I think you'll have fun with this one. It's an 8.5 out of 10 for me.